what do you think about CeeDee Lamb's season so far? And how do you feel he's living up? Because I think a lot of people, Mike, were in the point where, all right, let's go ahead and move on from Michael Gallup. And then there were some whispers of, well, what if you kept Michael Gallup, paid him, and then moved on from Amari Cooper? Now, I don't want to move on from Amari Cooper because I think he's a really good receiver. I think he's almost unguardable in certain situations. Sometimes the Cowboys don't give him the ball enough, and Kellen Moore talked about that a little bit yesterday as well, when Kellen Moore was saying, hey, we got to find ways to get him the ball. They're playing this two deep shell. We're trying to figure out how to get him there, but we got to get Amari Cooper the ball more. But whenever it comes to CeeDee Lamb, you had expectations that this dude was going to be able to make a leap into the number one spot and be a number one type receiver for you. And I am kind of curious for a lot of people how you feel he has lived up to that. Has he taken over that this year for you, or is he still missing something?
I will say, having as high as expectations as I had on him the day he was drafted, I will say there's a little bit of disappointment, but he's really good. He's on the borderline of a top 10 receiver in the NFL. Right on that borderline where that conversation is. And he's only in his second year. That being said, I think people probably see Jamar Chase as a bigger, better prospect than him. I think people probably see Justin Jefferson as a little bit better prospect than him. But it doesn't mean that he's not good. It doesn't mean that he can't still be great. But he hasn't been as dominant as I thought he would be. Yet he's still really good. Listen to me, please, before you kick my butt.
Okay, all right. I was like, where is he going? Which B word is he going to use here?
He hasn't been a top 10 receiver in the NFL yet, but he's right on the borderline of breaking through. Maybe it takes an awesome playoff game or two, right? Because all of a sudden, if he in the first round of the playoffs, let's just say you're taking on the San Francisco 49ers, and he has 7 catches for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns, that might elevate him, right? Mm-hmm. Deebo Samuel's a little bit weird, right? Because there's so many great receivers in the league that he is maybe breaking through this year a little bit more than CeeDee Lamb, but he's kind of breaking through as like this running back wide receiver. And so it's just CeeDee Lamb has been great. Very good, whatever word you want to put, but is he a top 10 receiver in the league right now? I would say he's in the conversation, but I wouldn't just solidly put him in there.
He's going to end up this season with more yards than he had last year. Maybe more touchdowns. Here's the problem. He's at 5 right now. He had 6 touchdowns last year. And touchdowns have been hard to come by. He hasn't had a touchdown in 4 games. And that's something for me that I don't know, a lot of people might say, well, that's Dak's problem. Dak's not getting him the football. Dak's not throwing well. Dak's having his own issues at the moment.
Yeah, but he's dropping balls, whether it's his face guard, putting the glare on, well, take it off, He's had too many drops. He's had those, the play against New Orleans where he just plants inside after, catching the ball and then almost gets a touchdown. That's freaking awesome. He shows his ability every once in a while of being arguably the best wide receiver in the game, but he hasn't shown it enough. And then he's had enough major drops to me over his 2-year to struggle to want to put him in the, I know he's a top 10 receiver right now.
From the first game of the season, he had 104 yards on 15 targets, which is ridiculous, right? That's ridiculous. Then he had 81, 66. Then he got 2 targets against Carolina in a game that they went nuts. And that's going to happen. When you have this many talented receivers, you got to figure out how to distribute things at times. And sometimes you're going to have a bad game. But then he comes back against New England, 9 catches on 11 targets, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. Big game. That was a huge game, and he got the game winner on that too. And then the next week he follows back up with Cooper Rush as his quarterback for 112 yards and and then continues going on. But over the last, against Kansas City, 3 catches for 14 yards. Against Denver, 2 catches for 23 yards on 9 targets. He was targeted 9 times, and I know that Denver covered well, but he was targeted 9 times, only got 2 catches in that game. And yeah, over the last 3 games, I've been really frustrated with the amount of drops that have been happening. And it goes back to Washington. He had something like that happen in Washington too. For me, my expectation doesn't go all the way back to whenever he was drafted. My expectation went to training camp this year.
Okay.
And everything we were seeing at training camp, and by the way, Diggs has been pretty good. But everything we were seeing in training camp was CeeDee Lamb was owning training camp.
Right.
He was maybe, and I know Amari Cooper wasn't there, and maybe that's where they had him lined up, and he was just able to take on whoever he had in front of him. He had a really good relationship working against whoever he was working against. But whenever I was seeing what he was doing in training camp, I was like, this dude's taking that leap now. I was expecting number 1 receiver. I was expecting elite number 1 receiver. No, I mean, like Devontae Adams type stuff.
I'm with you.
And I'm not there. There have been a few really good games for him this year. But I guess that's what my problem is, from the expectation of what I had before this season and what I was getting out of his training camp. I'm looking at a mediocre receiver at the moment. And that stinks because the dude almost has 1,000 yards. But I was expecting like 12 touchdowns. I was expecting 1,500 yards. Looking at the 2,000 number, like being like, okay, this could be exciting, especially with 17 games. We're not even close to that right now. And I don't know if I can blame it on him or if I'm blaming it on the offense and the way the offense is functioning at the moment. But a lot more people are saying that the drops are a bigger problem for them at this moment.